All right, good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
It's good to see you all again. Well, kind of. But we're back today. We're going to look at Esther chapter 2. But before we get started.
Kind of seeing you, not kind of cool to see you again. We enjoy seeing you again.
Yeah, we enjoy seeing you. We're kind of seeing you. But today we're going to go into Esther chapter 2 and kind of spend some time there. But before we do that, we want to ask you some questions and we want you to respond in the GroupMe app. Or if you're joining us on Facebook today, go ahead and tell us your answers on Facebook as well. And so the first question would be, if you could be sponsored by any kind of brand, who would you want to be sponsored by? You could get any other products, you could get anything you wanted, it would be unlimited. Who would you want to be sponsored by? Morgan, you got an answer?
I'm going to say Nike, I think. I am definitely more of the person who wants to be in the comfy athletic wear clothing type, so I'm probably going to go Nike plus all the shoes.
Yeah. As much as I want to say Nike or Adidas for all the shoes, I think today my answer would be I would want to be sponsored by the brand 47, which is a hat company. My new obsession right now is hats. I'm trying to get as many hats as I can. And so I would say 47 so I can have all the hats in the world. Our second question is kind of going to go along with our story. In our story, Esther has a unique relationship with a certain person we're going to learn about today. But I want you to think about what is the most unique relationship that you have. Maybe it's with a family member, maybe it's with a friend or someone close to you. So think about that. For me, my answer would be was definitely my most unique relationship was with my grandma Verna. She was just a person that we just had this special bond. She used to live across the street from us, and I used to go over there and we'd play card games and we'd play board games and we'd play this dice game called Farkle, and we would just solve life's problems. And she was an older lady and I was just this young kid, but together we had this bond where we could just talk about anything. And so that was probably my most unique relationship I have.
I could probably say the same person in the sense that I never felt like a stranger to her. However, she just was like my grandma from the time I met her, and we had barely been dating. But anyways, my answer, because I don't want to use the same one, is probably going to be Mallory, my twin sister. And that might seem like a cop-out or something, but literally we've been together forever. I remember moving away and coming up here and like being really sad about the fact that I didn't know like how long I'd be, like if we would ever end up in the same place again. And we always dreamed we'd like always live close by. So now like she's back, she moved up here and now we're back together all the time. And just our communication is like, we don't even have to talk sometimes to talk.
Oh, you guys talk.
We talk.
Real
we talk
fast.
A lot and really fast. We're always on the same page, like as far as like when we are talking about something, like I don't know. We just have I can't even explain it, but other twins might get it, I guess. It is a very unique relationship and a very special relationship. So even though it might sound like a cop-out, she's probably my most unique relationship.
All right, so we want you to think about that. What brand or what thing would you want to be sponsored by or just have all the stuff that they produce? And then what's your unique relationship? But as we dive into Esther chapter 2 today, Sunday we talked about Esther chapter 1, and we really talked about how the king was trying to get his wife to show herself off pretty much, and she decided not to. She didn't want to be treated like an item or an object, and so it resulted in her being kicked out of the kingdom. She was no longer the queen. And in Esther chapter 2, we hope you've already read that. If you haven't, we invite you to pause this and go read Esther chapter 2. But in Esther chapter 2, what takes place at the beginning is the king figures out he's pretty lonely without a wife and without a queen. And so he decides that he wants to find himself a new queen, somebody to take the place of Vashti. And he doesn't really have a long list of requirements of what he's looking for in a wife. He just wants to find somebody that's beautiful. And so he has his people, his officials, go out into the country and look for the most beautiful woman that they can find. And one of the people they stumble across is this girl named Esther. And she is a unique person. She is raised by her cousin, Mordecai. Both of her parents are not in the picture.
Yeah, we don't really know what happened.
Not really sure what took place there, but she's been raised by her cousin, and so she kind of has that unique relationship with Mordecai. He's kind of taken on this father-like position, but they come and they see Esther, and they see how beautiful she is, and so they cast her as one of the women that are basically going to get to try out to be the new queen. And so she goes to the palace, and there was this unique process of how they were going to determine who the queen was. Basically, they gave them 12 months to get ready. Morgan takes a long time to get ready, but I'm thankful she doesn't take 12 months to get ready for us to go out. You take longer than you think. But there's just 12 months of just trying to get like the most beautiful that you can to go in front of the king. And so time goes on, and she finally gets her chance to go in front of the king. And when she goes in front of the king, there's this unique reaction that takes place, and Morgan's going to read that with you, and it's Esther chapter 2, and we're looking at verse 17. So she's going to read this with you, and we'll break this down a little bit.
Verse 17 says, "Now the king was attracted to Esther more than any of the other women, and she won his favor and approval more than any of the other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti." Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
"And the king gave a great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his nobles and officials. He proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal liberality."
All right, so Esther, I mean, the king is still going through his interview process, and it's one of those moments where Esther walks in and it's over. He decides that she's going to be the queen. He takes the crown, puts it on her head, throws this huge festival to basically honor that he's found a queen and that she's so beautiful and all of these things. And this is how Esther becomes the queen, and this is going to become a huge part of the story as we go on in the next couple of weeks. But the story doesn't end there. If you keep reading Esther chapter 2, you find out that her cousin Mordecai, her father-like figure, has a good relationship with Esther, and he always wants to kind of keep in touch with her. And so she's been moved from her home now to the palace, and he kind of goes every day and kind of checks in at the palace to make sure that she's being treated correctly. And one day he's there and he hears the guards start talking about how they're planning to kill the king. They want to take out the king. And so Mordecai kind of overhears and goes and tells Esther, "Hey Esther, there is this plot to have your king killed." And so he warns them. Esther goes to the king, tells about how there's this plan to have the king killed. The king solves all the issues, has those two guys that were plotting to kill him. He then kills them, and Mordecai becomes this superhero. He saves the day in a sense. And that's where Esther chapter 2 ends. And like we talked about at the beginning of Esther chapter 1, this is a story where God's not really mentioned. As you look through the book of Esther, it never says, "Then God says," or then it never says, "Then God showed up." So what we want to focus in on today is that God is kind of setting the table to do some pretty cool things in the book of Esther. You play the game of checkers or you play the game of chess, and sometimes you have to move your piece to position yourself to make the next move. Maybe your move's not the most important move, but it's setting up for the next move. And that's what we kind of see here in Esther chapter 2. You don't see God necessarily physically show up or even vocally show up, but what he's doing is he's placing the pieces in the right spot so that he can do something pretty cool. Now he has Esther as the queen, and he has Mordecai becoming more and more popular with the king, and that's going to set up for the story to kind of unravel as we go through. And so we just want to encourage you this morning that in life this afternoon, we want to encourage you that in life sometimes you don't always see God working. And in today's world, literally today, you may be sitting at home going, "I'm stuck at home, I can't go to school, I can't see my friends, my school year has been ruined, my sports season has been ruined. What is God doing?" And you might be having a lot of emotions, asking God why. You may be mad at God. But I want to encourage you that God is, I know at least, I believe that God is setting up to do something amazing. And it may not make sense to us right now. And it surely hasn't made sense to Esther. She's been pulled from her home just because she was beautiful and now she's the queen. Like, that doesn't make sense. But God is working in such a way in her life to set up for something great. And I believe, and I know Morgan believes, that God is going to do something great during this time. Maybe you don't know what it is right yet, but we just kind of have to have this faith in him that he's going to do it and have some trust. And so we hope that that's encouraging for you this morning or this afternoon, whenever you're watching. We hope that that's an encouragement for you. And remember that God is always working, even when we can't see. And he's working in the book of Esther. He's not mentioned. We don't hear him vocally, but he's there. I hope that's becoming evident to you as we look through. So we'll jump into Esther chapter 3 on Sunday. We hope to see you then. Answer our questions on the GroupMe app, or if you're joining us on Facebook, tell us what you think as well, and we hope you do that. So we'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.